Hello, welcome to English for Everyone, where we teach real-life American English. Today we're going to learn to avoid some mistakes, so let's get started. First, this is not correct.
How do you call this? This is a light bulb. Light bulb.
I cannot say, how do you call this? It's not correct. We have to use the question word what. We can say, what do you call this? Or we can use passive voice and say, what is it called? But don't use how in this question. So it's correct to say, what do you call this? And the answer is, it's called a light bulb. Let's practice. What do you call this? That's right, it's called a light bulb. Keep watching for a complete explanation. This is not correct.
And you can start designing. You can literally build your dream kitchen on this computer and visualize how it will look like.
I cannot say visualize how it will look like. Why not? If you use how, you cannot use the word like together. In this way, you cannot say visualize how it will look like. So how do you say it correctly? Well, we have two options. One option is to change how to the question word what. Visualize what it will look like. Or I can use how and eliminate like. Visualize how it will look, but not visualize how it will look like. We cannot use how and like together in this sentence. So imagine your perfect house. Can you visualize how it will look? Me too. I can visualize how it will look. Can you visualize what it will look like? Me too. I can visualize what it will look like. So remember, don't use how with like together. Example, we can't say how is it like. We say what is it like. We cannot say how does it look like or how does it sound like. It's just how does it look or how does it sound. Or you can change to what and say what does it look like or what does it sound like. Just don't use how with like. Also, don't combine the way and how. You cannot say I like the way how it looks. Just say I like the way it looks. So keep watching to practice more so you can learn to avoid these common mistakes. A common mistake I've heard from my students is this: the way how I like it. Example, they cook the food the way how I like it is not correct. We cannot put the way and how together. We have to eliminate one. So you can say they cook the food the way I like it, or you can say they cook the food how I like it. But you cannot say they cook the food the way how I like it together. You cannot use the way and how together because they mean basically the same thing. For emphasis, you can use exactly or just. Example, they cook it just the way I like it. Let's practice. Do they cook the food just the way you like it? That's right, they cook it just the way I like it. Example, she's a good cook, so I can say I like the way she cooks. Or I can say I like how she cooks. But I cannot say I like the way how she cooks. I cannot use the way and how together. I have to eliminate one. So I say, I like the way she cooks. Let's practice. Do you like the way she cooks? Very good. I like the way she cooks too. So remember, you cannot say the way how. You cannot say the way how I like it. You cannot use the way and how together. You have to eliminate one and use just one. The way or how. This is also not correct. How do you call drive-through in your country? First, remember, drive-through is countable. So it's a drive-through. And how do you call? We cannot say how do you call. When asking a question like this, and you use the verb call, we cannot use how. We have to use what. What do you call? The correct question is, what do you call a drive-through in your country? We have to use the question word what, and we have to use an article for drive-through. A drive-through. What do you call a drive-through in your country? I cannot say, how do you call drive-through in your country? It's not right. So let me know in the comments, what do you call a drive-through in your country? Put it in the comments.
Similar thing to a hammer, but it's called differently. Hammer, mallet.
I cannot say it's called differently. I cannot use the adverb differently with the verb call in this case when you're giving the name of something. So if you have something with two different names, we say it's called something different, or it's called something else. Don't say it's called differently. It's not correct. Example, these are called reading glasses, and these are called something else. These are called something different. These are called sunglasses. Let's practice. Are these called something else? Are these called something different? That's right. These are called something else. These are called something different. I cannot say these are called differently. This is also not correct.
How do you call this appliance that would go inside your kitchen? Now, how do you call this thing where you listen to music?
I cannot say, how do you call this appliance? Or, how do you call this thing? In this situation, when we use the verb call, we cannot start the question with how. We have to start the question with what. So it's correct to say, what do you call this appliance? Or, what do you call this thing? We cannot say, how do you call in this situation. You can also use passive voice and say, what is it called? What is this thing called? And you answer, it's called an appliance. Or it's called a stove. Use passive voice for the answer. So, example, what do you call this appliance? And I answer, it's called a stove. Let's practice. What do you call this appliance? That's right, it's called a stove. First, this is not correct.
This slushie and this popcorn is delicious. Talking about popcorn, how do you guys call popcorn in your country?
It's not correct to say, how do you guys call popcorn? And this is also not correct.
Oh yeah, they can even proofread your essay. How's the app called? I want to check it out. Hi native. Oh wow.
It's not correct to say, how's the app called? And here's another teaching video with the title, Here's How We Call Each Finger. But it's not correct to say, here's how we call each finger. As you can see, this is a very common mistake made by non-native speakers. So how do we say it correctly? Well, if you want to know the name of something, it's not correct to say, how do you call it? We have to use the question word what. We have to say, what do you call it? We cannot use the question word how in this case.
What do you call that?
What do you call that?
What do you call it? Yeah?
What do you call it? That hat, what do you call it?
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
I'm trying to, what do you call it?
What do you call it? A fixation, psychosis? Have you thought of that?
What do you call that, a goose?
She gave it all up to live with a bunch of women and, what do you call it? A sorority. What do you call it, though? A success?
The fact that you're here and doing as well as you're doing gives me, what do you call it, a motivation, huh? To stay alive.
So let's look at the question and the answer. The question is, what do you call it? Or I can use passive voice and say, what is it called? I can also make the contraction, what's, and say, what's it called?
Oh, this one's good. What's it called again?
What's it called again?
What is it called?
They even got a whole... what is it called?
So that marbles thing that you were so very smart about, what is it called again?
What is it called? The cross-country classic?
Rita, please continue your restoration using Norman's, what is it called again?
What's it called again? Shake Shack?
When you answer this question, we have to answer with passive voice. It's called.
Exactly. It's called first jumping.
It's delicious. It's called a Malaga cooler.
It's called a gravity drive.
It's called the knockout mechanism.
It's called the masses.
It's called a sandwalk.
Yes, they do, and horses and pigs and goats and sheep. It's called animal husbandry.
It's called a rock blanket.
Or if I have something in my hand, I say this. What do you call this? Or I could use passive voice and say, what is this called? And the answer, it's called a plush toy. This is called a plush toy. Let's practice. What do you call this? That's right. This is called a plush toy. Now let's practice the question. Ask me the question. Very good. This is called a plush toy. What if you have two? For example, scissors. Question, What do you call these? These are called scissors. Or I can ask the question, what are these called? Or what are they called? They are called scissors. Let's practice. What are these called? That's right, these are called scissors. Now, ask me the question. They're called scissors. Very good. So when can we use the question word how? We can use how with questions like, how do you pronounce? How do you say? And how do you spell? With these verbs, we use the question word how.
How do you pronounce that one?
How do you pronounce your name?
How do you pronounce this?
We were curious. How do you pronounce it?
Now, how do you pronounce your name?
Example, how do you pronounce your last name? I answer, it's pronounced Liddell. Let's practice. How do you pronounce your last name? Very good. And with the question, how do you spell your last name? I answer, it's spelled Liddell.
Hey, Ann, how do you spell freckles?
How do you spell zucchini?
So how you spell all these words anyway?
How do you spell buter, by the way?
Peace. How do you spell that?
Okay, and how do you spell that?
T-R-O-Y.
Hey, Josie, how do you spell ugly?
How do you spell that?
Yes. How do you spell that?
Let's practice. How do you spell your last name? Very good. Let's practice with how do you say.
I'm not so young anymore, and how do you say a little incontinent?
How do you say no? Oh my gosh.
I know. How do you say that in Espanol?
How do you say that in French?
How do you say that you're a loving person with this on my face, you know?
How do you say that?
How do you say this in your native language? Very good. Let's also look at the difference between a direct question and an indirect question. If I say, what do you call it? That's a direct question. But if I say, do you know? I have to change the structure. Do you know what it's called? I cannot say, do you know what is it called? I cannot use a question structure. I have to use a positive structure after do you know. Do you know what it's called?
I know what it's called.
I don't know what it's called. You know what it's called?
What?
New tweeter ends.
Oh, I know what it's called, but you can't do this.
I know what it's called.
Let's practice. Do you know what it's called? That's right, I know what it's called. Ask me the question. Yes, I know what it's called. It's called a plush toy. Very good. Now let's practice the negative answer. Do you know what it's called? I don't know what it's called. Do you know what it's called? That's right, I don't know what it's called either. Very good. Keep watching to learn to avoid another common mistake with the verb call. Today we're talking about an important mistake to avoid, using the verb call. I can say, what do they call him? They call him a troublemaker. But I cannot say, how do they call him? When using call, you make the question with what. What do they call him? And also, when you use call, don't use like. They call him like that. No like when you use the verb call. So, I say, why do they call him that? Not, why do they call him like that? Why do they call him that? They call him that because he causes problems. They call him a troublemaker because he causes problems. So again, with the verb call, do not use like. You cannot say they call him like that. You say, they call him that. Question, why do they call him that? They call him that because he causes problems. He makes trouble. That's why they call him that. Let's practice. What do they call him? That's right, they call him a troublemaker. Why do they call him that? That's right, they call him that because he causes problems. He makes trouble. That's why they call him that. So remember, when using call, use the question word what, never how, and don't put the action call with like. You cannot use the two words together, call and like. You can say speak like that and talk like that, but you cannot say call him like that. It's call him that. Today we're looking at the differences between some similar questions. We'll look at the difference between how is it and what is it like. And we'll see the difference between what is she like, and what does she look like? So, the question, how is it, is a question for condition. Is it good? Is it bad? Only condition. But if you want to know more information, you want a question for description. What is it like? Question for description, you want more information. Let's look at the pronunciation. Question, how is it? Intonation on is. Intonation goes up on is. How is it? How is it? Very good. And two pronunciations for what is it like. Here you separate what is. Pronunciation, the T changes to a D. What is. What is it like? What is it like? And here we have the contraction of what is together, what's. So you hear, what's it? Together, what's it? What's it like? So, if your friend is in a new English class and you ask the question, how is it? That's a question for good or bad. Do you like it? Is it good? How is it? But if you want more information, you ask the question, what is it like? And they answer, description. It's a big class. It's a small class. The teacher's very nice. More information. Ask the question, what is it like? Let's practice. So you're in a new English class. How is it?
It's great.
What's it like?
The class is small and the teacher is very nice. We listen to different stories and we discuss them.
You're in a new English class. How is it? What's it like? Very good. Question for description about a thing like an English class. What's it like? Question for description about a person. Maybe your teacher. I can put she. What's she like? Oh, she's very nice. She's very smart. Question for description about a person. What's she like? Tell me about your English class. What's it like?
It's a small class and we have a new teacher.
Oh, really? What's she like?
She's very nice and she's friendly too.
Tell me about your English class. What's it like? And your teacher, what's she like? Very good. Example, you're talking about a vacation. Question for condition, how was it? Question for condition, good or bad only. How was it? It was good. No, I want more information. Use question for description. What was it like? Oh, I went to New York. It was a big city. We had a lot of fun. More information, use the question, what was it like? Where did you go on vacation?
I went to New York.
How was it?
It was great. And it was my first time.
What was it like?
We had a lot of fun. The buildings are huge. The food is great. It was fun.
You went on vacation. Where did you go? How was it? What was it like? Very good. Example. Your friend has a new boyfriend. You don't ask the question, how is he? How is he? He's fine? He's good? It's not the correct question. If your friend has a new boyfriend, you say, what's he like? It's question for description. You want more information. What's he like? Oh, he's really smart and he's very nice. So you have a new boyfriend. What's he like?
He's very nice and he's very smart.
So you have a new friend. What's he like? Very good. So the question, what does she look like, is a question for description too, but it's a little different. It is only about physical looks. So, what does she look like? She has long brown hair, she has big beautiful eyes, only describing how she looks. So you have a new boyfriend. What does he look like?
He's tall, he has short brown hair, he's very handsome.
You have a new friend. What does he look like? Very good. Let's talk about the difference between how's the weather and what's the weather like. How's the weather is what you say to your friend on the street. Hey, how's the weather today? Call your friend on the phone. How's the weather today? And what's the weather like is for in a specific place. Like, where are you from? In your country, what's the weather like in your country? How's the weather today?
Oh, it's great. It's sunny.
And what's the weather like in your country?
Oh, it's very cold. It snows every winter.
How's the weather today? What's the weather like in your country? Very good. Let's practice. I'm in a new English class. Ask a question for description.
What is it like?
It's great. It's a small class and the teacher's fun. I'm in a new English class. Ask a question for description. It's great. The class is small and we like the teacher. I have a new teacher. Ask a question for description.
What's she like?
She's very smart and very friendly. I have a new teacher. Ask a question for description. She's very smart and very friendly. I have a new boss. Ask a question for description.
What's he like?
He's not very nice. I have a new boss. Ask a question for description. He's not very nice. He's kind of mean. I have a new girlfriend. Ask a question about looks.
What does she look like?
She's pretty and she has blue eyes. I have a new girlfriend. Ask a question about looks. She has long hair and blue eyes. Ask a question about the weather today.
How's the weather today?
It's cold today. Ask me a question about the weather in Dallas.
What's the weather like in Dallas?
It's very hot in the summer. Ask a question about the weather today. It's cold today. Ask a question about the weather in Dallas. It's hot in the summer. Very good. Let's review. Question, how is it? Is only question for condition. It's good or it's bad. How is it? It's good. More information, use your question, what's it like? What's it like? New York. It's a big city. Description. Description for a person. What's she like? She's very friendly. And question for looks. Only looks. What does she look like? She has big eyes. Thank you for watching. And if you want to learn more expressions and how to use them correctly, subscribe to our channel and keep watching.